Hello, this is Matt, and here we are at our final video for creating seamless stone textures. Sorry about the delay between videos. I've had a lot going on, but we're going to try and finish it up in this video. So let's go back to our last project, open it up, and where we left off we had painted the center tiles and we left the outside tiles empty. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and save this as a new document, and I've already done this, but just name it something different and hit save. And the reason why we're doing this is just in case you want to go back and fix something in here or you're not happy with the outcome. It's a pretty quick process to do all the rest of this, so in case you want to change it, you can always go back. Right now we're going to flatten the image, so right click here and flatten and go to filter, other, offset. And you've probably seen this done in other videos, but basically what we're going to do is set these values to half the image size. Since our image is 512 pixels, we're going to set it to 256 in each side and hit OK. And that's going to leave us with some of these lining up, but most of them are going to look pretty crappy. So we're going to go to our brush tool and we'll just check our settings real quick. We're essentially using our brush as an eraser, so let's use our color picker and pick our tile color, or you can go to your swatches. If you lost them, they're just down here. Let's set our brush to about 20, hardness to 90. Make sure your mode's on normal and your opacity and flow are at 100%. And basically we're just going to paint in between where there's any type of strange joining. So we'll paint in between here, in between these. I'm just going to erase pretty much this whole thing here. And I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller so we can get in the small areas. Erase this. Erase almost all of that. Sorry if you hear any noise in the background. I have people over, and it's kind of a weird thing for me recording in front of people, but I'm doing it just for you guys. Alright, so once we've got that all finished up, we're going to change our brush. We're going to use our color picker and we're going to select our grout color. And let's go to our brush and bring it to about 10. And let's bring our hardness real low and leave that at about 10%. Our opacity and flow are going to be at 100%. And basically we're going to use this like a pencil and we're going to fill in these here. And it doesn't matter if it looks really silly or not, because we're going to fix that. But just basically create yourself some stone boundaries, and I'm going to create extra stone in here. If you have any areas where it kind of the edge looks kind of cut off, just go ahead and fill in that edge as well. And this one, I'm not sure how I want to do it. Probably just round that off and fill that in. You're going to want to do this kind of similar to stone geometry, so it doesn't look too strange. Don't get too crazy. And fill this up. Fill this in here. Whoops. Gonna want to make another small feature here, so I'm just gonna round it up. Actually, that looks pretty bad. I'm getting too crazy. And let's fill that and do that there. You can go and do the entire stone if you want, but it's kind of it'll be pretty difficult. It'll just add too much time to the process, so you'll see I'm kind of keeping it simple. And once you're done and everything looks nice and somewhat correct, we're just gonna go into our filter and liquefy. And we've done this before, but in case you don't remember, we're going to zoom in, control click to zoom, and we're going to use a couple different tools here. We're going to use our line warp, our bloat, and our pucker, just wherever it works. So first I'm going to start with bloat. I set my brush rate down to 10 so we can kind of be a little bit more in control. And let's just make sure we have about the same size tool as our stone. And you'll find that the line warp tool will work a little bit better without pinching your lines too much. And you can set it a little bit smaller when you're using that. but basically this is pretty similar to like a smudge tool. I'm gonna kind of bring this. I'm gonna use both tools here, but I want to get a pretty nice area first. Alright, that looks pretty nice, and you can kind of just play with it and get it nice. This might be a good spot for a bloat. Hotkey is B if you want to switch quickly in between. And I'm using the brackets to resize this as well, so if you forgot about that, that's how you do it. What you want to do is you want to avoid going into this outside area, so maybe right here we could use our pucker just to make it a little bit smaller. See, that worked quite nicely. And here we're going to line warp. And I left a line out here, but this is basically what you should look like when you're pretty close to being finished. I kind of used the warp tool to drag a line out to right here, but I'm going to end up fixing it. I'll show you how to fix it if you have a similar mistake. And once you're done, hit OK. Okay, so once you're finished, it should look something like this. Or it should look exactly like this if you're me. Alright, and I'm just going to fix this real quick, I'm just going to paint over top like we did earlier. So hardness to 90. And I'm just going to get rid of this. And I'm just going to try and smudge it. There we go. We got a nice smudge. Alright, so once I finish there, clean that up a little bit. Now what we're going to want to do is use our magic wand tool. And I'm sure there's plenty of ways to do this, but I'm just going to do this my way because it's the best way. Or maybe not, but it's the best way that works for me. And this is kind of a jacked up rock here. And you kind of want to avoid inconsistencies with stuff like this because a lot of times, I'm going to end up fixing it later, but a lot of times when it tiles, it's very noticeable and it kind of throws off your whole design. Alright, once you've selected them all, right click and hit select inverse, and I'm going to marquee tool, zoom in, and I'm going to hold alt and I'm going to deselect all these lines here. And there's a reason to this that you'll see in a moment. So just trust me and do it. And almost done. And we're going to right click, layer via copy. I'm going to duplicate this background layer and name it shadows. And I'm going to duplicate this mask and name it mask. And I'm going to rename this one mask 2. And I'm going to create a new layer and name it highlights. And you basically know the drill here. We're going to use this as a clipping mask. So we're going to hold alt and click between the layers. And if they're not ordered like this, go ahead and get them ordered like this. We're going to start creating shadows and highlights. So first of all, let's go to our brush and we'll start with the highlights. Make sure you're on your, or let's start with the shadows. I'm getting these mixed up again. Make sure your hardness is at 90. We're going to set the mode to darken. And we'll leave the opacity and flow at 100%. Use our brush and let's take our eyedropper and let's get a sample of our shadow. If you have the swatch, go ahead and use that, but I'm just going to do it this way. And I'm holding alt to zoom in and out. I hold alt and roll my mouse wheel, and that's how we zoom in and out. And we're going to start painting shadows, but be careful not to touch this edge. And I'll show you how you can do this later. But basically this edge is going to touch this edge. And so you don't really want any inconsistency here. But since this whole bottom is probably going to be a shadow, we're going to want to have it connect. And I'll show you how we can do that later. So if we're on our shadows layer, just paint a little bit. And you'll notice since we're darkening, if you were to go over this line here, it's not going to affect it. So get as close to that as you want. And we'll do this. Basically just paint like we did in the last video. And let's get our shadows looking pretty nicely here. I'm going to paint this whole thing dark because it's going to be hidden. And keep in mind that this texture, it's not going to be too complex when we're done with it, just for the sheer fact that I'm trying to show you more process. I'm going to show you more process here than getting the actual really defined texture, and that way we don't waste too much time. Alright, when we're done with that, we're going to repeat the process with highlights. And last time we used the opacity, but this time we're going to just paint it on there. And it's okay, again, if you paint over top of the edge, because we're going to be able to erase this separately without messing up our other layer. So just do what you do, paint this in. And I'm just going to add a little feature in there so it'll look nice when we're done. Again, don't touch that because this rock down here is going to be that. Now for the highlights, we can use our eraser, and since I intersected, I'm just going to erase that, and we're going to cut it out like we did before and make it look better. You can go around these grout edges if you feel like you overlap too much. And I'm just going to make my brush a little bit smaller so I can make it somewhat more detailed. That one looks pretty nice. And I'll fast forward a little bit so it doesn't get too boring. Okay, once you're done, you should have something similar to this. I lost the second part of my recording, but all I really did was finish up the shadows and the highlights. You saw me do the highlights, but if to do the shadows, you're going to go to your brush, and basically how we got rid of the lines in between before, we're going to get rid of the shadows, and I've already done that. But once you've done that, similar to how we did the other ones, you'll come up with something like this. What I wanted to show you how to do is, first of all, I'm going to save this as a test document. So I'm hitting save as, and I'm using a JPEG and saving it as test. And what you'll see happens is when you do this, let me open up Paint real quick, and I'm going to open that test document, select all, copy. What I wanted to show you is that when we line it up, for the most part it's going to be looking pretty good, but you'll see that some of the areas have a joining area. So I'm going to show you how to fix that. So like if you look at this one here, if we zoom in, you can see that this box right here has a shadow basically halfway and then it stops. And so what we want to do to fix that is we're going to create some guides. So go to View, New Guide, 0 px for pixels, and hit Enter. And we're going to repeat this for the horizontal, 0 px, and we're going to do the same thing for the other side. So 512 px because it's 512 pixels wide. And the last one for the horizontal, 512 px. And when you're done, you should have 4 guides that surround the entire image. Go to canvas size, and we're going to increase the canvas by 100 pixels on each size. And you'll notice that the inside is going to be a normal image, so we'll use our marquee tool. And your marquee will snap to the guides, so just go ahead and drag a box and Control C and Control V to copy and paste. And we're going to do this for all of our sides. And once you've pasted it, you can use your move tool right here to move the layers. Okay, so this is kind of just a repeat of what we were just looking at, and you can see where right here we kind of have an issue. So I'm going to repaint the shadow. So I'll use my eyedropper, grab a shadow color, and we're just going to drag it across, and I'm going to clean it up a little bit. And you can do this for all of them. I'm just doing it real quick to show you how to do it. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Eraser. And once you finish that, you can drag a marquee over the area. And I like to do each side at a time just so I can make sure it's lining up perfectly. Layer via copy. And let's just drag that over to the other side and line it up with the guide. And you can do the other side as well. And you don't have to do them one at a time. You can do the whole side and copy one whole side and then copy the other whole side. So let's just drag this, layer via copy. There we go. You can drag it to the other side just to make sure it lines up. Again, it doesn't really matter if you do this, but just so you can see it. And when you're done, you can go and just revert the image back to the canvas back to the right side. So back to pixels, -100 and -100 again. And it should have fixed this, and you should have uniform on each side. Alright, that's the end of this tutorial. I'll probably create another one just to show you guys how to paint textures a little bit more realistic than this. Like I said I would in the first video. But for now, just to get the process down, I kept it simple, and will be it.